Oh man.
Uh, hey, those
All
are
right.
those are usually those are our best shows when we just don't prepare anything. Just come on and just start talking.
Well, it's 2025. We took most of the holiday break, not off from working, but off from doing podcasts, off from doing a lot of things publicly. Just kind of I would say a needed, for me at least, a needed reset after a pretty hectic fall of travel and competitions and being on the road. Um, Patrick's still in Germany. He's had up and down, I would say, the last couple of weeks. Sometimes busy, sometimes not as busy. And I've been enjoying the time here in Wisconsin. So slower pace of things, but still kind of working and getting ready for the next year. Um, yeah, I think we'll start doing some more shows. Obviously, the next, in terms of competition, the next big competition is Wodapalooza, and they've announced all of the athletes. They've been starting to release some of the workouts, and it's always a great way to start kind of the calendar year. So we'll have some, definitely have some content coming out pertaining to Wodapalooza. Um, what else, Patrick?
That's it. No. No, like I said, it's kind of nice taking a little bit of break off. I think it's important. I think when we worked at Morning Chalk Up, they did a really good job of just like taking a week off, where it didn't matter what was going on. Took a week off for the holidays, just gave every time to refresh. I think it wasn't really planned, intended to be that way, but like seemed like every week I was gauging you, like, hey, do you want to do a podcast? And you're like, well, yeah, let's do one. But then you're like, well, you know what? I think I'm going to spend time with friends and family. I'm like, that's cool. Do that. And I think that was the most important thing, that we did stuff like that, because while there we're doing like one or two shows a week, and you're on the road and everything. And I saw it was kind of dragging on you, away from friends and family, and just kind of being isolated in my little part of Western Germany. But no, it's cool to be back. It's cool to see. Um, I'm very excited about what 2025 has in store for us. Um, like you said, we'll be at Wodapalooza. Can't wait for that. And then of course, we have other stuff going on. World of Fitness the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks. CrossFit Functional Fitness. It's been crazy. A lot of stuff, a lot of announcements. We've been kind of silent about it. I don't think it's because we just don't want to talk about it. I think it's just because we're just waiting for stuff to unfold. Um, you know, I mean, just like the other day, it's like you think you have like the CrossFit season kind of figured out, and all of a sudden they threw another live event out there, and everyone's like, "What the hell?" And it's like it just seems like a lot of that's been going, not just in CrossFit, but I think just functional fitness. You got the World Fitness Project, you have just a bunch of stuff going on, and I don't know, it's kind of cool to kind of detach from that for a little bit.
Well, I think we'll have a chance to talk about some of those things at some point, like Patrick says. But today, we're going to end up. Just got a text from Noah. He is going to be joining us here in a minute or two. And
Mhm.
before he hops on, I just want to take the time to acknowledge HCR CBD. These guys have decided to stay with us. They were with us all of last year, supporting the show and supporting us in a lot of different ways, and they're doing it again. And I know we oftentimes we always have them down there, of course, but we bring them up towards the end of the shows. But over the break, I did have a chance to talk to Carl, who's the owner of the company and the inspiration behind their products. And I just want to kind of emphasize something that he always shares with me, which is, if you don't know Carl, like he competes in the masters divisions at competitions, half dozen times a year or so, and he prioritizes his training, his health, and his fitness because of things that he's struggled with in the past that a lot of people could relate to, and he's very uh, conscientious, I would say, of how his daily disciplines and how he treats his body affect other aspects of his life. And it's in that mindset that he's designed these products. They're extremely clean in their ingredients with a purpose of integrating with the biological components of the body that absorb CBD, basically. They're not, they may not be the most flashy on the market. There may be some other things that have, fancy cars and cute girls and whatever else, but these products are really good. They're really thoughtful in the way that they craft and design them. We've had, Patrick and I have had a chance to use them for over a year now. We know that there's some others that have been able to work with Carl as well. And, if you're a person who's conscientious about your body, I think that these are a great option. If you haven't tried them before, I would encourage you to give them a try.
Yeah, and January is National CBD Month. Usually, if you use code FRIEND, you'll get 20% off. But for the whole month with no code, you get 20% off all month long. No promo code necessary on all your CBD products, and they deliver all throughout the United States and territories. So make sure you check them out. I've heard a lot of great things about the gummies. I know you've made a habit of making the gummies a kind of your daily routine, as well as the recovery. But yeah, just great stuff. So yeah, shout out to Carl. Like they're really our very first like podcast sponsor, and it's just cool to have them on board for another, to be on board at the beginning of the new year. We had a really great conversation with him, and it's cool when we have those conversations. Usually, we usually don't talk about the just partnering up or sponsorships or the exchange, the awkward conversations about exchanging money. It's usually we're talking about like fitness, the next event. I mean, he's always asking what event we're going to next. And, he most of the time if it's close to his area or if he feels like it's a good competition for him, they'll go. And last time we got to see him in person was MBS Turkey Challenge. And, he had a great time there. Overall, I think they had a good time. They had a booth there. They sound like they had a great time there in terms of selling the product, kind of being introduced, which is a lot to say. So, yeah. Yeah, it was so thanks again. So again, use just go to the website, 20% off all month long. And
You want to bring them in?
Yeah, let's bring him in.
Gentlemen.
There he is.
Hey,
What's
Noah.
up?
How we doing?
Doing good. I don't think we have the weather that you have quite yet, but we'll be joining you down in Florida soon enough.
Yeah, man. It's actually funny. A couple people that I've spoken to recently and I've seen the backdrop of just being outside in a tank top are jealous because it's so warm here. And ironically, it's the coldest day of the year that we've had so far at like 58. So we're not doing
I saw Annika post that this morning, and I was so tempted to tell her, like, hey,
yeah, that's
you can complain if you want to, but temper it a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's the best time of year here in Miami is between December and February because it finally cools down from the unbearable heat that we have the rest of the year.
And 2 weeks from tomorrow, I think it's the 13th version of Wodapalooza is going to start. Did you go to the first ever Wodapalooza?
Yeah, I did. I've got some scarring, but also exciting memories from that. It was a very cool, like way more gritty event then than it is now. Obviously, they've professionalized quite a bit in the last 13 years, but it was fun. Same venue as it was, I guess, no longer. But it's cool to have seen how much they've grown over the years.
Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are about them moving out of Bayfront Park. I mean, obviously, on one hand, it was iconic, historic, tons of memories there. But for the last several years, I've heard increasing frequency of we've outgrown this space, and now they've gone to a new location. I mean, how familiar are we with the new location, and what do you think people can be looking forward to about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am familiar with it in a sense. Like it's South Beach. It's the beach that people come to when they are visiting Miami for that purpose. And perhaps people that have come to Wodapalooza ventured that way just to go spend some time in the sand and experience some of the crazy that happens down there. And I think that has become a little bit of the reputation of South Beach, that it's like the party area. There's a lot of goofiness that happens during certain times of the year. And the city of Miami wants to change that image and have it be a little bit more clean and health-based. And so Wodapalooza is helping them kick off that initiative of cleaning up their act down there. So I think it's good for everybody. It's good for the city. Hopefully it's good for the event. I know from a spectator's standpoint, it was starting to get really crowded in the stands and you wouldn't get to watch some of your favorite athletes do certain things. And it just was so much being crammed into what ended up being too small of a space. So this will hopefully allow them to be more comfortably as big of an event as they can be.
No, when you heard they were going to put basically Wodapalooza on the beach, you were able to see it at SoCal, were you not? You were able to go to SoCal,
Yep.
kind of see kind of like the proof and concept. But when you first initially heard like, hey, we're going to put basically everything we had at Bayfront and we're going to put it on South Beach, what were your initial thoughts and what how do you think it's going to turn out?
Yeah, I think that the sand element to it is probably the biggest difference. Bayfront Park, while it was right on the water, was all on solid ground. And so as an athlete, none of the events were really impacted by the location in that sense. Sure, we swam in the bay often, like you always grew to expect that. But I think now the element of the sand is going to play into it, like we saw in SoCal, where we'll have some events that were either running through the sand or doing burpees in the sand or moving items through the sand. So I think that's going to make it a little trickier than whatever we've experienced in the past. It's like maybe the same exact workouts, just stepped up a notch of difficulty because you're trudging through the sand. Potentially. We may not be in the sand at all, but I would imagine that they will use what they have been given this year.
Well, based on the concepts they had for the designs they put out for what the venues look like, it looks like at least one of the competition floors will be all sand, which is very similar to what they had. They had one of the competition stages at SoCal that was just primarily sand. So I have a feeling that's going to happen whether we want it or not.
Yeah, I think so.
Noah, am I correct in looking? I'm looking back at your history at Wodapalooza. Have you been on the podium there on teams or individual every year since 2018?
2018. Honestly, I
mean since 2014.
So in 2014, I think
You're gonna love this.
I tied for third and lost the tiebreaker. I think it was to Nate Schrader. Is that right?
Nate, do you remember the other two guys who finished ahead of you too?
Travis? No. Kenny Leverich.
He won that year.
Okay, Kenny Leverich, Nate Schrader, third. Maybe Spencer Hendel, second? No.
No, it's a big guy, and he's a games athlete from that time period. But this is a one-off for the OGs. Craig Kenny.
Oh, nice. Nation. That's awesome. So Kenny Leverich, Craig Kenny, and Nate Schrader. That must have been a pretty big dude weekend. So tied for third. I wouldn't count that as podium. Let's scratch 2014 off the list. But then I know I won as an individual 15, 16, 17. And then I think with Will Morad and Travis Mayer, we took second in 2018.
Do you remember who beat you guys?
Canadian dudes, right?
The Canadians actually took the first and third spots on the podium. There was Caron, ADL, Albert Dominic LaRouche, and Vigneault. And then there was another team of Canadians in third. So you guys held it down for USA on that one.
We did our best. And I remember that one coming down to a single rep on the final workout that we ended up appealing and losing. And it was a dramatic loss for us because we almost had it. But that was 2018. Second, 2019, I went back to individual and took third. 2020, maybe third again, or maybe no podium that year. Did I miss a podium?
No, it was third. It was Vellner and Mayer in 2019, Vellner and Sager in 2020.
Okay. And then 21 was the year I think that we won with the boys.
There was no competition in 21.
There was no 21. Okay, so 22 I won with Chandler and Travis.
Yep.
23 Chandler and Travis and I took third.
Yeah, and that was a very competitive year. The third place finish there was, you beat a lot of really strong teams to finish third.
Well, I personally screwed us because that was the year that I missed that overhead squat. I got 0 pounds, which I don't think I've ever done before. And they did the math after I would have needed to hit 275 for an overhead squat, which is very doable in order for us to win. So that was frustrating. And then last year, myself, Chandler, and Tola teamed up and took third. So yeah, I guess if they took a year off, I didn't technically miss it. I've been on the podium since 2015, if we're not counting the tie in 2014. So hopefully can add one more year to the list.
Well, some people might like to belittle performances like that, but not us. We think that's incredible.
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
And that's a reference to something that you don't need to worry about.
Okay, yeah. I stay out of all the drama there.
Well,
So.
I am curious to get your perspective on this because we put up a post yesterday, and I thought this was really cool. You saw the post?
Yeah, with that Laura has the chance maybe to be the only person to win the Triple Crown. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think people are
Let's
getting
call it the
caught up in
clean-
the semantics of the terminology that we
I
chose.
thought the same thing. I was like, did it happen in the same year? No, you guys were just saying, generally speaking, nobody has ever in history won all 3 of those events in any span of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you're one of
Correct.
6 athletes, 3 men and 3 women, who's won 2 of them. And yeah, I mean,
Right.
you can speak to how difficult it is just to win 2. And, you know, people can say all they want. Oh, well, Tia could just go to Dubai and win. She hasn't.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Fraser never came to Miami. So nobody's done it. She has a chance to do it. I think that's really cool. And I don't know
think so.
why people are not like thinking that's cool.
I think people probably had the thought that initially came to mind for me as well, that a Triple Crown victory usually happens in the same season or calendar year, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I think it would be very impressive for anybody to pull off all 3 of those at any point in their lives. There's
Well,
little old me back in 2015.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Patrick's got a lot of pictures in the archives.
Nice.
It's always fun when he pulls out. And I think, you know, the other thing that kind of like people are getting so caught up on those words, but Patrick spends a lot of time on these posts to find pictures that represent you guys, that represent the competitions, to do these write-ups. And sometimes I just wish people would be more appreciative of that stuff than the little details.
For sure.
Yeah, forget about it.
So you guys are running it back again this year. You're bringing back the boys, and what's your obviously in terms of competition, we'll talk a little bit about some of the stuff you did this past fall, but at this point in your career, having done this for so long, how do you personally make decisions about where and when you compete? You know, was there any consideration of doing individual, for example, or both, or was this something that Travis had to drag you into, or how did that go about?
No, yeah. So the last handful of years that I've committed to doing team at Wodapalooza, just because it's a little bit more fun, low key. I don't want to, I think there is an element for me of, I have been fortunate enough to accomplish having won Wodapalooza individually. So I can check that off my list and try to just have a little bit more fun with it at this point. And when I signed up, I think the first time with Travis and Chandler, we had all agreed, kind of unofficially, we obviously didn't sign a contract or anything, but that we would just do team so that we could put all our energy into that and not come into it pre-fatigued or anything. So Travis broke the unofficial contract and decided to sign up to do both individual and team this year. And he promises that won't hold us back in any way. So we'll see come game day. But I'm excited to run it back with Chandler and Travis because we have won it in the past. We've done relatively well by podiuming 1 or 2 other times. And the reason that we switched it up and added Tola to the mix last year was because I was planning on doing the entire team season with him for the CrossFit Games and wanted to get as many touches on being his teammate as possible. And so Travis was heartbroken that he got the boot, but was willing to bring it back and forgive us.
There's a nice comment here from Melanie, by the way. I feel Noah's career is very underrated. One of my favorite athletes. I think a lot of people, especially when you just listen to what we're talking about, about Wodapalooza, like to also recognize that in a majority of those years, you're making the CrossFit Games and having a great performance there too. It's a thing that's difficult for me to maybe appreciate, and maybe you can just shed some light on this, but to stay at the top of a sport for a decade, there's a growing number of athletes who have shown that they can do it in our sport, but it's pretty rare, and it's the level of discipline that's required to do that is probably not appreciated by most.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because it feels really easy to me now, not to qualify for the games and do what I've done, but I mean to be disciplined enough to have done it for so long, just because I've made it my lifestyle. It's become second nature. It's what I do. It's my job. I wake up, I go to the gym, I train, I recover. And so I think if you're maybe trying to build that lifestyle, it could be really difficult to do from scratch, or if you've never done it before, but it has gotten easier over time to have that be kind of natural. Although it still is incredibly hard to put in the work. The work itself, it's like it's easy to show up to do the work, but to do the work is quite difficult. And to like stay healthy through it all as well, I think is a big thing. Somebody was asking me yesterday if I have ever had any like major injuries or surgeries over the course of my career, and knock on wood, thankfully I have not. I've not missed a season due to an injury. So I'm grateful for the fact that I've been able to figure out the formula that maybe doesn't work for everybody, but has worked pretty well for me so far. I honestly, looking ahead when I was younger, never thought that I'd still be competing at a high level and like physically having the energy and capacity to do what I'm doing now at the age of 33. I would have thought I'd be long done by this point.
You know, there's a lot of people that say, you know, once you hit 30 or once you hit 40, have you noticed any changes in your body that you need more sleep, need more warm up, anything like that?
Yeah, little things for sure. And I'm not ashamed anymore to admit that I'm not as good as I once was. Like I could still do some pretty cool things, but I'm not like the top dog. And I do think that some of that is due to, I wouldn't say it's like the wear and tear, but it's probably like the fire and desire and just skill level. I think there are some of the younger guys that are just stepping into that I had 5 or 6 years ago and maybe don't have burning the same way anymore. But yeah, I don't even know if that answers your original question, but it's cool to still be doing it. I'm grateful for it because I really love it. 33 and feeling it. And that reminds me, thank you, Rodri. That was your original question. That, yeah, I have to take a good bit of time now to like make sure my knees aren't as achy before I do some squats and running, and make sure my back is warmed up before pulling off the floor. Whereas in the past, I could just walk into the gym, drop my stuff and go. That's not quite the case anymore.
Rodri, by the way, is the technical producer for our live streams that we do. So you get a chance to meet him in Miami.
Awesome. He's crushing it.
Peace.
No, when you said, do you talk to any of the athletes that you are that's in your situation now? Like, do you reach out to like you know, to a Scott Panchek or to you know, like a Rich Froning, like, hey, when you guys were hitting 33 years old, were you feeling this? And you know, what'd you guys do? Did you just cut back on volume? I mean, how did you transition kind of out of this, like, hey, I'm so competitive, but now I still want to be competitive, but maybe not at that level? Did you reach out to anyone like that, or you just kind of figure it out on your own?
Yeah, I probably should have. It makes sense to hear you saying that. Like, those are great resources that have done it before and would have made sense to get some advice from them. But I think sometimes you don't really realize that you're in it or that it's happening to you until it's beyond that point. And so I think for me, it was just this like slow progression, natural transition of realizing that I was getting a little older. And the big shift for me was when I started to see the games leaderboard and my name was sliding down a little bit. I had to do a reality check and say, all right, if it's not realistic that I'm finishing inside of the top 10 for a couple years in a row, does it make sense for me to keep chasing something that really isn't there anymore and putting so much time and energy into it? Because that ends up being more frustrating and disappointing, right? If you're pouring your heart and soul into something and you're not getting what you want out of it. I feel like I had the power to alleviate a little bit of that frustration, knowing that taking my foot off the gas is probably going to lead to a less impressive performance, but being okay with the fact that that was already kind of happening anyway, if that makes sense. It was definitely a tough mental, emotional battle for me. And Max El-Haj, who was my coach at the time, and I had a bunch of back and forths. Like, as a coach, he was pushing me to not give up and like that I still had what it took to be at the top level. We're talking back in 2021, 22, 23. Those were the years that I was like trying to decide what I wanted to do. When do I want to make that transition either into team or out of competing altogether? And like I said before, it just kind of all happened as it happened. And there wasn't this thing where I sat down and said, all right, here's my, yeah.
But it almost seemed like you had the whole team mapped out, like the team season mapped out. I mean, And first thing I want to ask you about the team season. How close were we having Noah Ohlsen and Chandler on the same team for a season? How close were we?
So last year, before the season started, that was what we were trying to make happen. I don't know if I was maybe a little more keen on that idea than Chandler was. He, having his background in the Army, is so analytical and really well thought with all the decisions that he makes. And so it wasn't an easy thing to, like, for me, it's like, yes, I want to do that. And I was encouraging him to move to Miami. So obviously it was a much more difficult process for him to uproot his life and move across the country than it would be for me to just say, yeah, I want to be on your team, but you have to come to me. Because Joanna and I have had a home here. We have family here, roots with the gym and community and stuff, whereas he had only been in California for a year. So I was hoping he had more of the freedom to do that, but it was going to take all the boxes being checked for him to feel good about it. And I think there were just a couple boxes that we left unchecked. And so it didn't happen in time. And we both pivoted a little bit and found other amazing teammates. And I think we both really, really enjoyed our separate teams last season. I know I learned a ton and grew a ton and enjoyed my experience with Tola, Lena, and Matilda, and I think he had the same with Jesse, Lauren, and Josh. We were having conversations again a few months ago about trying to make it happen again, getting him and Jesse over here in Miami to do the game season. And then, to be honest with you guys, as the games kind of unveiled some of the things that they have recently regarding the investigation and the season structure, Chandler just didn't, and myself included, like, didn't feel good enough about where the season stood to make a big decision like that of moving across the country to commit to going team next year. And so Chandler said, hey, I think I'm probably not gonna compete unless you are dying for us to do team together. I think I'm going to venture elsewhere. And he's already kind of publicly made that announcement. And so without the possibility of being on his team this year, I'm not sure that it's something that I want to do either. But that's not a decision that has been 100% made yet. So we'll see.
Well, I would imagine that there's a ton of people that would consider you for their team.
I appreciate that thought, and yeah, maybe that would be a consideration. I think there are two things for me when I made the decision to go team. I really wanted to win. That was the number one thing. If I was going to do it, I wanted to win the games on a team. I didn't want to just go team to have fun and do it. And then I wanted it to also be really special and with people that I loved and would cherish those memories of. And so that was with Chandler. I felt like both of those things were very realistic, that we would have a great time together and that we also could had a good chance of being able to win. And without him being in the equation for either of those things, I'm not so sure that I'm as interested in just doing it with anybody just to do it.
You've kind of alluded to it a little bit there. Obviously, he was announced to be participating in the WFP, and you had mentioned that the World Fitness Project. That Will was a teammate of yours 6 years ago at Wodapalooza, and he's probably the most recognizable forward-facing part of that. Is it cool for you to see a friend of yours, having an opportunity to do something like this?
Yeah, very much so. I'm really proud of him and grateful for what he and the team at WFP are doing for the athletes, providing, I don't want to call it an alternative, but another opportunity for us as athletes to compete at a really high level, providing guaranteed paychecks and minimum salaries that we've never had before, I think is really admirable. And it hasn't been announced yet, but there's a good chance that I will be participating in the WFP this upcoming season individually myself.
Nice. I mean, people have definitely been asking.
I think there's only a couple spots left, so hopefully Will's still hanging on to one of them for me.
I haven't really been pursuing trying to uncover any athletes, but they've announced 17 men so far.
All right.
So there's 3 spots up for grabs.
Best one.
Well, I think it's now as good as time of any to ask you about this, because Sean's asking about if you stole that hat from Laura Horvath.
I did not. Fortunately, I was I earned it myself, I guess I'll say, because Red Bull hats apparently you can only get if you are officially a Red Bull athlete, which I actually didn't even realize until recently. And
No way.
just this week, I have signed a deal with Red Bull, which I'm incredibly excited about. So representing Red Bull from here on out, and I think there will be a lot of really cool things that come from that partnership.
In my experience through the lens of CrossFit, which I've been, investing my life in personally and professionally for a while now, there's been Jonakowski, and he's been with Red Bull wearing that hat for a long time. And then there's Laura Horvath. I don't think there's been any presence from Red Bull with CrossFit athletes in North America before you.
Yeah. So a little bit of insight on that, and I hope I'm not oversharing. 10 years ago, my manager and friend Bijan and I connected with the Red Bull team here in Miami. They have an office down in Wynwood, and had some preliminary conversations about a partnership and did a few small things. Like I participated in the Wings for Life run that they host down here and a couple other things, but never were able to push the deal all the way through because Red Bull Global wasn't really all in on fitness. They were all of the other niche sports that I think they're well known for now, like cliff diving, snowboarding, all the crazy things that you see their videos that kind of catch your eye when you're scrolling on Instagram. They finally this year have decided that they want to make a big push into fitness. And so I got an email from one of the gentlemen that we connected with a decade ago and was like, hey,
wow,
are you still around in Miami? And I said, I sure am. And so we sat down and met a week after that. And it's been a few months of figuring out if the partnership made sense. And it really does. And I'm super excited about it.
On a more like a general level, I guess, again, kind of considering that version of Noah Ohlsen in 2012, 13, 14, and then knowing how you've evolved in terms of your performance in the sport of CrossFit, how strange is it for you as you've gone through this career to have these kind of increasingly notable opportunities to work with, major brands first inside of CrossFit, and now, we're talking about a global brand in Red Bull.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so grateful. I think it's not something that before I got into this I would have ever expected. I didn't even have the desire to be an athlete before I started this sport. I grew up playing sports, but never thought I was going to be a professional. I was going to college, studying strength and conditioning, thinking I was going to be a coach at some point. And then my sophomore year of college, I found CrossFit and fell right into this life of becoming a professional athlete. And so to have garnered all of these partnerships over the years is such a pleasant surprise to me. I didn't have the vision for it, but now that they're all kind of coming to life, it's better than I think I could have expected. And as I alluded to earlier, at 33, I didn't think I'd still be doing it. So to not only still be healthy and competitive, but also be working with some of the best brands in the world has been really cool. And I hope that I can do my absolute best to make them proud and represent them well.
In the, you mentioned Bijan, and you and him have had a friendship and a working relationship for a long time, but and so I'm sure that it's been very helpful to have him there in that journey and for that process. But is there anything that you've learned about kind of whether it's the negotiation process or continuing a relationship with a brand that is maybe something that we wouldn't think of, or that if there was, young athletes who were getting some opportunities that you would encourage them to kind of keep in the back of their mind during those conversations and during that process?
That's an awesome question. And it's something that my wife, Joanne, has encouraged me to share in some capacity at some point. She feels like I've done a relatively good job of managing those relationships and building a social brand. And she thinks that there's a lot of athletes out there that probably could use a little bit of guidance on that. And I think she's right. I think that both Bijan and I have grown a ton over the years in terms of how we secure partnerships, how we maintain those relationships, the way that we approach them. I think both in really positive ways, and I hope our partners feel that as well. I think to speak to athletes that are looking to get these relationships, the easiest way to do it is to win. I know that's not the answer that everybody wants to hear, but if you're competitively successful and you're getting a lot of exposure by doing well in competitions, there's more eyeballs on you that way, and brands are going to be eager to partner with you. But in addition to that, I think if you also bring to the table a personality, creative, social, that people want to follow with and engage with, that's kind of the full package that brands are looking for. Some people have done either really well over the years, and I think few people have managed to do both. But that would be my advice, is to put your priority and focus into training and being as competitively successful as you can. And then without it taking away from that, if you can find ways to be creative, create content that's engaging and exciting to people, I really enjoy it. Like, I have found that creating on social is something that is fun and exciting for me, rather than like a task that I have to do. That's that cliche term of like, I get to do it versus I have to do it. But I feel that way about making fun videos, and I think that shows and helps with growing a following.
Do you think now, obviously there's some uncertainty to the season, but it looks like we're going to have multiple athletes that have multiple ways throughout the year to kind of put themselves out there. Whereas in the past, it was pretty much like, oh, you did Dubai, Rogue, and Wodapalooza, and then you had the CrossFit Games season.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the only chances you got to see athletes live, and putting themselves out there. I think personally, as someone who manages athletes too, I think the more chances an athlete has to put themselves out there on a competition floor, that brands probably prefer that more than just creating content in the gym all the time. I mean, yeah, I see both ways, but I think now the way the season is looking, where it looks like CrossFit or functional fitness, whatever you want to call it, or competitive fitness, it's a 12-month thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. That for me brings up the thought of the legitimacy that the CrossFit Games brought to competing at a high level there. That always has been, or was, I don't know if it'll change, been the pinnacle and like the real stamp of authenticity for an athlete to be a top athlete in the sport. Because there are some athletes that compete often around the world, in Europe. I don't want to name any names, but I'm sure there are a couple that can come to mind for you guys, that go and win Madrid, Dubai, whatever these competitions are, but then they show up to the games and take like 15th. And I think they maybe don't have as strong of a brand presence or like notoriety as an athlete as the athletes that maybe don't compete as often, but always won the games. So my point in saying that is that I don't know if that landscape will shift. And now if the games aren't viewed with as much importance as they have been in the past, will athletes be able to elevate their platforms a little bit more by just competing more often? We don't know yet. Maybe.
No, we don't. Yeah, this season's almost like it's a case study on.
Yeah.
I think the closest that we ever saw something like this was like the sanctional years, where, yes, the ultimate goal was CrossFit Games, but yet so many events out there. I mean, me and Brian talk about it all the time. That's kind of when Danny Spiegel kind of just came on the scene, because she did like 7 sanctionals, she kind of put herself out there. And she became almost like a global brand just because she was going to all these competitions.
That's cool.
And it helped her out. But then you see it, there were some athletes that didn't help out. But again, that was 2019. It's 2025. A lot has changed since then. I mean, just not just in the sport, but also like just, the economic landscape, the political landscape,
Yeah, I'm very curious. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think we glitched a little bit there, but I'm curious to see if the World Fitness Project becomes the thing that everybody's paying the most attention to and gets the most respect from athletes and community. If there's still a handful of athletes that do participate in the CrossFit Games, but it's clearly missing a handful of top level athletes that choose not to participate in the games. Is it going to be as highly revered? I don't know. Only one way to find out.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the story of this year will sort of tell itself. The one thing that I've heard kind of from people who I think are looking at it rationally, at least, is the WFP is a linear track. There's 2 events and a finals. It's easy for them to understand.
Mm-hmm.
The more and more stuff that comes out about this year's CrossFit Games season, the more confusing it seems to be. And I think that has been a general concern with the inconsistency of the season over the years. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But I didn't really want to spend too much time talking about that kind of stuff. I was particularly interested, and I know you've maybe spoken about it in some places. I haven't had a chance to ask you about it, but what you did back in October, November of competing in a Ironman and then backing it up with Rogue the following weekend, to me is like superhuman stuff. What was the process like for you training for something that different, making a decision to do those 2 things, whatever you want to walk us through in that regard?
Yeah, I will say maybe not my best idea ever, but honestly, maybe it was my best idea ever. It was a decision that I made a little bit on a whim. So I had a handful of friends, myself, my best friend Aaron, Evan, and Scott, who all decided to do the Ironman together. I'm sorry, the 3. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. The 3 of them had already committed to doing this Ironman in the beginning of November. At the beginning of this, or the past year, I said to them, hey, I can't commit to that right now because my focus is on winning the CrossFit Games with Team Peak. When that's over, it would give me a very limited time to prepare, but there's a chance that I'll jump in and do it with you guys, which I know sounds crazy, but I'll consider it. And so the games wrapped up in August, and Joanne and I were out on a little dinner date and started talking about the Ironman situation and the possibility of being able to complete it like safely in that amount of time without having a ton of training. It would basically leave me with 2 months to prepare for it, September and October, and then do it in November. And she had some concerns, but I felt like it was very possible. And so I decided to commit to that. Then I got the invite to Rogue and was like, that would be kind of crazy if I did both. So let's do it. Knowing that my performance at Rogue was going to be impacted by the Ironman, but I decided that I would rather experience both of them, maybe to a lesser degree, than one of them on its own.
Well, and what was, I want to ask you a couple things about Rogue, but what was the actual Ironman like? I mean, that's 11 hours and you're chasing 11 hours and you were pretty close to it.
Yeah. I just got it. It was right under. I think it's 10 hours and 58 minutes.
How difficult, I guess, how difficult was that day for you relative to all the challenging things you've done in your life?
It's funny. Over the course of those 2 months of preparing for it, I realized that it's much easier than what we're used to and harder in a different way. So easier in the sense that because it's hours and hours of work, it's pretty low intensity. Like you can't really go super hard if you want it to be sustainable for that long. So I found that part to be easier. Like my heart rate stayed lower for most of the things that we were doing, but you're doing it for hours on end. Fueling was actually the most important change in my training that I incorporated. That was really helpful. So when we're competing in CrossFit, like every so often in between events, maybe you'll have some carbs, some protein. In an Ironman, what I was taught at least was that every 15 minutes of the entire 11 hours, I was consuming like 20 to 25 grams of carbohydrates. And so I had over 1,000 grams of carbs throughout the day, but that was like one of the only ways for that amount of activity to be sustainable. And on race day, I found the swim and the bike to be tolerable, right at the paces that I was hoping to be able to hit. And then the back half of the run, and maybe that sounds obvious, but that is where I had to really dig deep, and it got pretty uncomfortable and difficult to hold exactly at the run pace that I would need to reach my goal of finishing just under 11 hours. I really hit the 12-mile mark out of 26 and was experiencing crazy doubt. Like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. At any point now, I'm going to fall off and my pace is going to drop down from this low 9 minute per mile to like over 10 minutes per mile. I could just feel my body starting to like shut down and get really tired and uncomfortable. And I don't know what it was, but I turned around at the halfway point, maybe had a sip of Coke, which is one of the most commonly consumed things on an Ironman course, which I wasn't aware of. But that was like a little boost for me. And I was like, I got this. I was able to just dig in and stay right where I needed to for the rest of it. My average run pace, Cole, ended up being 9:32 per mile for a marathon at the end of it all, which doesn't sound super fast and is not super impressive, I think, to some people. But I had no idea what was sustainable for me for that distance. And that was right at the threshold of what I was able to accomplish with at least that much preparation.
Where does, for you personally, where does that accomplishment fall compared to all the other things you've achieved? Maybe even just from the perspective of how proud of you are for yourself finishing that.
Yeah, I was proud. And that was something, that video that you played a clip of earlier, the little highlight reel that I had posted on Instagram, that was one of the things that I said in it, is that I was proud of myself. And I don't say that very often because it wasn't really so much about my finish and my placement the way that the CrossFit Games season always ends, where like you're really only proud if you win, kind of, right? Otherwise you have to convince yourself that you were proud of your effort or something here and there that you're like justifying not having won. This was about completion. And I guess I had a time goal that I met and would have been disappointed if I hadn't. But the fact that I had done this like monumentally difficult thing that I'd never done before felt pretty cool.
Roger's keeping us honest for the metric people in 99% of the countries worldwide.
Which again, not that impressive, but got the job done.
You finished it. How soon afterwards did you jump on that plane to head to Scotland? And how was that flight to Scotland?
Dude, yeah, it was a super quick turnaround. So the Ironman was all day Saturday. Sunday, we hung out. It was in Panama City Beach, Florida, which is like a 10-hour drive north of Miami. Sunday, we all recovered, had a big pancake breakfast, chilled, drove back all day Monday. I think it ended up taking us 11 hours. Got on the plane on Tuesday for a red eye to Scotland, landed, I think, Wednesday afternoon, did the check-in process, and then started the competition on Friday. So it was tight. And my body recovered better than I thought it was going to in terms of soreness and like joint achiness. I didn't feel as bad as I expected to. However, I was surprised once the competition got going. I just really did not have a lot of like pop, if that makes sense. I didn't have like the grittiness that you need to dig in CrossFit workouts and be powerful. I felt like a pretty extreme lack of that.
During the 2 months that you were prepping for the Ironman, how often were you doing Metcons, like high intensity Metcons?
I tried to split it pretty evenly. I tried to do 3 days a week of Ironman endurance training, where it was like 4, 5, 6 hours a day of just endurance, long swim, long bike, long run. And then the other 3 days a week would be in the gym doing CrossFit. And the adaptation process there was interesting for me because when I started adding that volume of endurance activities, specifically the running at the beginning, man, my body was not happy about it. I remember the first 20-mile run that I did in prep was like end of September, maybe, or middle of September. And I went into the gym the next day and my knees were so achy. I was supposed to do pull-ups. I walked under the pull-up bar and looked up at it and had to jump maybe 6 inches off the ground to grab the pull-up bar and was like, nope, I can't do it. And I got a little box and stepped up on the box to grab the pull-up bar because I was so achy. And thankfully, my body adapted over time and was able to handle that volume. And then some of the sessions that I would do same day, 10, 15-mile run, go straight to the gym, do power cleans and snatches, and felt way, way better. So
Oh, wow.
bodies are incredible things that will eventually, I think, adapt to the demands that you put on them. It just takes time.
It was funny because you mentioned September, and during that time, we asked Annika if she'd participate in the Reps Ahead in SoCal.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a workout, and she tried to work out, and I think you did it with her. And she was
She
kind of bragging about how she beat you. And I asked her at SoCal, I'm like, was that after, or how soon of that was after you ran like 20 miles? She's like, well, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. She left those details out on purpose. But no, that was fun to be able to prep with her. And it's been cool she's like, I don't know, I feel like she's like my little sister, and it's like that same situation that I feel like happened with Guido and I, where he took me under his wing a little bit when I started, and he was way better than I was. And then eventually we kind of leveled out, and then he passed me. I think Annika and I are kind of getting to that same point. She is starting to edge me out a little bit more often than she used to. And it makes me more proud than frustrated.
Well, you got to Rogue, and for anyone who watched, people who were there, they would see some things that we're kind of used to seeing with you the last few years in terms of embracing the crowd and having fun while competing. But what was your mindset in terms of, doing the best that you could given the circumstances there?
For sure. Yeah, that was something also that I didn't realize was going to happen until I was in it, where I was hoping to perform well, even given the circumstances. I still wanted to show up and do decent at Rogue. And when that wasn't really the case, when I felt like I just didn't have that pop, I was trying my hardest. I promise I wasn't taking it easy. But on that first event, I think I had gotten so used to running at a 9.5 minute mile pace that when I'm in a pack with these guys running at a 5.5 minute mile pace, I'm like, I don't have it right now. Like, my body is not used to that. So I just tried to have as much fun with it as I could. I was like, I'd rather lose the event and make some people laugh and smile as we're going than to lose and be miserable the whole time. So it was fun, and I appreciated that I was well embraced by everybody out there for trying to just have a good time.
And I wanted to ask you about that exact thing, the environment there. There's often, especially in recent years, there's been this talk about maybe a really outside of the games, I would say, but a lackluster fan attendance or environment at the North American events compared to some of these international. Rogue made this decision to move to Scotland. Europe showed up. In terms of, I would say, putting the games aside, because the games is always incredible. How did that stack up in terms of the crowd experience for you guys on the floor compared to some of the other stuff you've done around the world or throughout the U.S.?
It was cool. They did a really good job. I think people out there were enthusiastic and are generally just pretty kind people. And so there was a lot of cheering. There was a lot of enthusiasm from fans afterwards as well. It was kind of a funny realization. This is a bit of both to answer your question. I met somebody walking through the hotel lobby, and we took a photo, and they said it was after either day 1 or 2, and I was in either last place or second to last place. And they said, "You're doing so amazing out there. It's you're crushing it. It's so great watching you." And I was like, I feel like you're maybe not watching the same competition that I'm doing, but it really made me understand a little bit more the perspective that people have on if you're having fun and putting on a show that looks like you're doing well versus, again, like I said, if I was miserable and just hanging my head and frowning the whole time, they probably wouldn't have said you're doing great. So it was an interesting realization for me.
I'll tell you this, because I have spent a lot of time in Europe over the last couple seasons, and there were actually quite a few people from outside of the UK who traveled to Scotland for Rogue this year. And the general sentiment that I heard from them was, I never thought I'd get to see X athlete compete in person. And I'm so grateful that Rogue has given me the chance to do that, because I'm never going to be able to leave my job and my family to travel to the States for the games And outside of that, these athletes don't have a lot of reason to come here to compete.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I've experienced that over the years as well. Whenever I've gotten an opportunity to travel to a country that I maybe haven't in the past, like I did an event in the Dominican Republic a few years in a row, and have been to Spain and France. And every time I do that, I feel like it's a touch. Yeah, there's a touch point with people that I've never gotten to interact with before that really grows that relationship between myself and that person or those people and the culture. Like I get an appreciation for the culture of wherever I am, and those people end up becoming bigger fans of me just because we've now gotten to interact in person. So every time that I travel, I think that usually ends up happening, which is cool.
I need to get with Bijan and you and try to get you guys out to either like Korea or China, because I think you'd be. I
haven't done anything in Asia, I think.
Athlete in Korea. Yeah. Seemed like just immense growth. I think we'll talk about that soon. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm open to it. Got to give everybody love around the world.
Yeah, you're one of those few athletes that do. We talk about how hard it is. Like we talk about the triple crown or whatever you want to call it. It's a hard for a lot of athletes to go to Dubai or now for Rogue to go to Scotland. Now, granted, Rogue helps you out with some of that, but some of these other competitions don't do that. But you've been very fortunate to be one of those forward-facing athletes. I remember talking to Rich when he went to China for the Asia CrossFit Championship, and he said, he felt like it was his responsibility to come there to kind of be an ambassador of the sport, ambassador for fitness. And I think you're maybe in that part of your career where you're competing, but you're not taking it as serious as you was like 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So now you can do other things to help not just the sport, but also fitness and wellness.
Yeah, no, I'm grateful for that opportunity for sure. And I hope more things like that come my way.
No, I think we'll let you go here just about at the hour mark, maybe a couple minutes. I do want to ask I want to ask your opinion on one thing that's, I think it's definitely something that could be helpful for me, and I'm sure it could be helpful for a lot of people. Since the games this last year, I think that there's been a lot of confusion from the general population, various degrees of knowledge about what actually happened there, and different levels of understanding of what's happened in a fallout from that situation. But one thing that I consistently hear is that the sport is one thing, but CrossFit as a concept, if like anybody who's listening to this concept of CrossFit has without a doubt and profoundly changed their life for good. And so, you just, to me, are an ambassador, are a positive person who usually has the ability to express things well and keep things in perspective. What would you say to someone who's struggling to figure out how to maybe rationalize CrossFit that's changed my life for the good with CrossFit that I'm so disappointed with whatever from this past 6 months?
Yeah. Thank you for that and the opportunity to speak to that a little bit. I think I'm in the same position that many other people maybe are in terms of the way that they feel about how everything has kind of unfolded. And I think, to be honest, I love doing CrossFit. Like you said, like I love going to Peak every day and jumping into class and doing workouts that kick my butt and make me feel better and look better and perform better. And so I know I'm never going to stop doing that. Like no matter who is behind something or who says what, like I'm always going to find a way to do that type of fitness because I really enjoy it and I know it's good for me. So I would encourage you, if you feel the same way, to keep doing that. If you have been scarred enough to the point where you feel like you don't want to or can't support an organization or a group of people because your beliefs don't align with theirs, I think that's fair, and everybody's entitled to their own opinion and to make whatever decisions they want. Perhaps you can find another gym to go to that maybe doesn't have that association that does the same type of fitness, if that's something that you enjoy doing. If you love cheering for CrossFit athletes, but you don't feel good about doing that anymore. Thankfully, there are a ton of other opportunities now that are being presented to the athletes to compete for other organizations and to compete individually, or not individually, but I should say independently of any brand. So to summarize all that, I think a lot of us that love this stuff, the reason that we're all three sitting in front of the computer, and anybody that's watching this that loves this stuff, keep doing it. But if you feel like you need to do it in a different way now, I think that's totally acceptable and understandable. If you feel confused and frustrated, a lot of us do too. But I think, like we talked about earlier, like sometimes you just go with the flow and find your way into whatever makes sense through time. And I think that's kind of what's happening now.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think it's really well said. The health and fitness side of it is obviously something that hopefully everyone will hold on to that's already come across this, and hopefully we can continue to spread that to others as we go. And you know, the sports side, the business side, like you said, I think everyone's got to find their own way there, and there's not necessarily a right answer, but I think that helps. Hopefully that helps contextualize it for some.
Yeah, I think so. I think again, the simple answer is like, if you've got no problems with it and want to keep doing what you were doing, do that. Support those athletes in that sport. And if you feel like you can't do that anymore, there's plenty of other opportunities that are going to be available to compete and to support athletes that are competing in the near future. So just kind of don't give up on it yet.
No, before we let you go, you mind answering a couple questions from some of the listeners?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's Cole's a big fan, obviously, but he will Noah do a High Rocks?
That's Cole Sager. What's up, Cole?
That's what I was thinking. Cole has no picture, you know.
I will. I have not, and I don't think we've announced it anywhere, but I'll share it with you guys here. Chandler and I are signed up to do the men's pro doubles event in Miami in April, so that will be my first exposure to it. I am like cautiously leaning into it because I know, based on my physiology and the type of athlete that I am, an age that I am, like I'm not going to step into High Rocks and be world class at it. It's just like the guys that are just incredible endurance athletes. I'm not writing myself off completely, but I think if I was more of an endurance-based athlete, I might be like, ooh, yeah, this is something that I want to go all in on. But I think if I were to go all in on it, I still wouldn't be one of the top 5-10 in the world, which is like, I've gotten used to that. And so that's what I want to do if I'm going to pursue a sport. So I might just dip my toes in it. We'll see if it becomes a full-time thing. But I think I'm as curious about it as everybody else is right now.
Well, I think it's a good thing you have a partner like Chandler who has done the High Rocks.
For sure.
Maybe you guys should reach out to your old buddy Hunter McIntyre, see if you come down to Florida. Maybe
I think Chandler and Hunter are either doing a training session together for High Rocks this week, or doing a High Rocks with or against each other. I don't know. There's something about Chandler and Hunter coming up soon.
Yeah. And then
thanks, Cole.
This came from Rodri. Favorite Red Bull flavor? Coconut is addictive.
They are all really good. And I didn't realize until I started working with them that there are so many flavors now. Like, obviously there's the traditional, they started with like the original, the dark blue can, and then they had the sugar free, and those were kind of the two primary ones. They just launched actually Zero, which is, it's 0 calories and 0 sugar, but it's sweetened with monk fruit. And it has a bit of a different taste to it, and I really, really like it. I've been grabbing this one more often lately, but they're all pretty good. I think just try them all and see which one tickles your fancy.
Well, me and Brian had the chance to go out to California and see our good friend Ari Hurst. You know Ari from Red Bull, and she was about that new flavor. And we weren't able to sample it there, but she was telling us about it, and
I wish I could virtually pour you a sip, but that feels dangerous.
Well, it's almost 9 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock on that, so that'll just keep me up all night.
Yeah, not a good idea. I had the pink one yesterday too. That was also delicious. But anyway, what else we got?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think you're off the hook. I think most of it you've already answered. And we'll see. For everybody, color. Noah, I like this.
Trying to. What did we announce today? We announced potential WFP signing, High Rocks with Chandler. I don't know if there was any other breaking news, Red Bull partnership. But yeah, we want to keep you guys engaged and excited. A lot of cool things coming.
And as we mentioned, you'll be competing in Miami once again, Wodapalooza, a couple weekends from now. Only doing the individual. Are you going to be or the team? Are you going to be around during the individual competition at all?
I am. So I am going to be hosting a Happy But Hungry Run Club run on probably Thursday evening for anybody that's interested in doing that. We'll do that along the beach, not in the sand. There's like a really, really nice run path down there. So we'll announce that pretty soon with details. Friday, some other like brand activation engagement stuff, and then competing Saturday, Sunday. And then I should have mentioned this earlier, but because I had so much fun doing the Ironman back-to-back with the Rogue Invitational, I was convinced to sign up for the Miami Marathon the very next weekend after Wodapalooza. So quick turnaround, and then I'll be running 26 miles all around the beach again.
You've really learned your lesson.
You
learned your lesson, haven't you?
Bad idea, but somehow it still seems like a good one.
I did have someone ask me, you've been able to see reps ahead when you came, or you've heard about it. We're actually, I guess, in competition with your run on Thursday night. We're doing a reps ahead there on the beach, and we're gonna have Jason versus. Well, I'm not going to announce it. I don't think I can do it now. Yeah, we'll wait. Either way. But some people have asked, what are the chances of a dream match people have asked about was Noah versus Chandler? And I'm like, is that something that would interest you in the future, perhaps?
Yeah, for sure. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'm definitely open to the idea.
All right, we'll keep you in mind for one of the dates we have.
That I'll say no to.
It's the opposite of an Ironman. It's like it's potential to be 3 minutes and you could win.
Yeah, I like that. 3 and done. Cool. Yeah. All right, fellas. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Yeah, congratulations on Red Bull. That's so great. It makes total sense. The values, the people there that I've met, it's great that they're lucky to have you. What a crew to join Yona and Laura. That's a hell of a crew. Hopefully they get 3 to do something.
Yeah, that's the plan for sure. And it's cool. The last thing that I'll say about them, their slogan for the product is that Red Bull gives you wings, and that's also the company ethos when it comes to partnering with athletes. When we were negotiating with them, it was less about what can Noah do for Red Bull and more so, does this partnership make sense in terms of what Red Bull can do for me? That their thing is, how can we give our athlete wings? And so we've come up with a bunch of ways that Red Bull is going to be able to support me and get behind some fun and exciting goals that I have for this year. And I'm grateful for that.
Love hearing that, man. Thank you for taking the time, and look forward to seeing you in the sun in about 2 weeks.
Sounds good, gents. See you soon.
Take care, Noah.
Noah Ohlsen, at this point, I'd say a legend in the sport, over a decade of incredible performances, and appreciate him taking the time to stop by and share some pretty exciting stuff that's going on in his life. And I think by extension will be exciting for people who like following his story and supporting him. SPM, thank you for the super sticker there.
When was the first time you met Noah? Like you actually met him and had a conversation. What was your earliest memory of Noah? We should start asking athletes this, because I think it's a cool game, because I can remember specifically when I met Noah. So
well, I mean, obviously he won't remember. I think you have better memory for those first meetings in most cases than I do. My first memory of him is from watching him, not in person, but in the old regional days, 2014, 15, 16, as he was in some battles there with Ben Smith, I think primarily for the top spots. And I don't remember if I met him until maybe I started working for the games in like 2018-19 time period.
Yeah. At the first time I knew of him, but then when I judged and I went down to the Atlantic Regional, I remember I wanted to really judge. There's 2 athletes I wanted to judge at any point, and not just because I was fans of theirs, because I just was interested in them. was Allison Scuds and Noah. And I got to judge Allison. We have this really cool picture of me and Allison, like her standing, underneath the rig, and I'm right next to her. And then I was really hoping, because the way they do assignments is they typically, they put the best judges in the middle. That was my first time judging Atlantic. I didn't know a lot of people, the judges there. There's obviously the judges put the people they know in the middle lanes, and I was one lane away from getting Noah, and I really wanted to know. And I was trying to trade with that person. Like, we don't trade. It's like trading like Pokemon cards. And I was like, come on. I was like, I just want to judge Noah, and didn't get that chance. But then 2019 at Wodapalooza, which you referred to, I was one of the more seasoned judges. And I was actually, I got to judge Noah a couple times. And I think a couple times he would come out and, give you a fist bump and ask how you're doing. And then he asked me, like, what do you think of Miami so far? And I was like, I love it. And he goes, yeah, isn't it great? And he did this before he was doing, and I value those interactions when I was a judge, because it's like, it's really easy to just get caught up in the moment. But, Noah's one of those athletes that would kind of, make it fun and humanize what you're doing. And
when you finally, the thing is, like a guy like this, I think there's a few other athletes that exist in this vein, at least in CrossFit, that you look at him from afar and you're like, there's no way. There's no way he's that nice. There's no way he's that friendly. There's no way he's got this positive energy all the time. And when I did finally get to actually spend some time with him, whether it's a few seconds like that or an actual conversation, I don't know how he's like that all the time, but he seems to be. Like,
yeah. Well, he used to get a lot of flack for that. Remember, at the beginning, people were like, "Oh, it's all an act," and it wasn't an act. It wasn't an act. I mean, it's funny because we've talked about this personally. It's like I feel like James Sprague is kind of getting that. It's like, is James Sprague like, all the positivity and everything? I'm like, no, that's James. That's who he is. And you can choose not to like that. But the thing is, but that's who he is, an act. And everything Noah did, that wasn't an act at all. And that's who he naturally is. And it's great. And it's amazing. And when we get to see that outside the competition floor, that's when it's real. And luckily for him, he's so involved with that community, so involved with his gym. I mean, that Peak 360 gym, I mean, if you ever been there and he's there, he'll stop, take pictures with you, have a conversation with you. He's built a community there. There's a reason why athletes are, there's a reason why Matilda and Lena, left Norway. I mean, there's many reasons to leave Norway in the winter to go to Miami and train, but it's good stuff. And I think he's I brought it up before. He's an amazing ambassador for the sport. And I'm not just saying CrossFit, I'm just saying sport in general. I mean, if he goes on and does high rocks, he'll be a great ambassador for he'll be great at whatever he does. And I think, like Red Bull, they absolutely nailed the nail with the whatever. They absolutely nailed it.
It was a good choice.
Getting someone like him, because he is an ambassador and he means so much. I think it's one of those things where we might have taken that for granted. Whenever he does step away from competition, it'll be unfortunate, but I don't think that's going to happen for a while. I don't see that happening for a while.
Yeah, and it's I think it's something that's an easy principle in life. Sometimes, whatever it is, it can be taken for granted when it's constantly around. And, when sometimes you miss it more once it's gone and you don't even realize how much you appreciated it. So anything else you want to talk about today?
We got 2 more this week. We have our Wodapalooza preview, which Brian has given. Me and Brian sat down for almost 20, 30 minutes going through your rankings of athletes. So you rank them, 45 through 1, essentially?
There are, all the rosters have been announced. So this will be an individual preview show, 1 through 45 on the women's side, 1 through 40 on the men's side.
Yeah. We'll do that Friday, right?
Is it Friday or is it tomorrow? I think it's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow? Oh, geez. It is tomorrow.
It better be tomorrow because I'm flying to Florida on Friday.
I think it is tomorrow. So I guess I have to work on that post. So that's tomorrow. Good thing I have tomorrow off. And then Saturday we have we'll have another friendly conversations with someone most people might know. Noah might know him, George Sterner.
I am so excited to have George on the show. George, right during that time frame, mid 2015, 16, 18, whatever, he was kind of in the mix to win the teenage division. He pushed through to the games in 2019 as an individual. He finished one spot ahead of Jeff Adler that year. They both got knocked out after, I think, 4 events. And in 2018, I had actually said I thought this would be the guy who eventually takes the crown from Fraser. You know, he just seemed to have the pedigree of someone who could eventually become a champion in this sport. But he's been training, but has not been competing for 5 years, basically. He did the qualifier. He's going to be in Miami, and I'm pretty interested to see what he's been up to for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, that was a guy, like you said. I mean, you thought a little bit more highly than I did of him, which is a bold assumption. And, you know, and who knows? Who knows? Maybe 5 years is what he took. Maybe he's peaking now. You know, it took him 5 years to peak. But we're about to find out. It's like, I remember when we looked at the qualifiers, like George Sterner. And that's something you've been kind of talking about. And then you communicated with him, reached out, and we get to see what he's doing. We haven't really talked to an athlete like that that's done something like that. And there really has been an athlete like that in the sport. I mean, I think really the closest person might be someone like Will Morad, you know, who kind of took, you know, because of some misdiagnosis, or someone like Ariel Lowen, who kind of, well, she never made the games, but, you know, just kind of just popped back up later on. So who knows? I'm excited. We'll see where you have him on your predictions, and let's see if he can beat those predictions. Who knows? This might be something that's you know, something where we're like, hey, you know, we interviewed him first. Not that matters, but yeah, we got those things going on this week. Like I said, we're coming back with a little bit coming back refreshed. And then we're going to look ahead for next week. Hopefully have a couple more athletes on, trying to just build back up the Friendly Conversations database here and see what athletes been going, what they've been doing. We haven't really talked to many athletes since before the games, when we're kind of just, you know, just grabbing any athlete we could find and trying to get to know who they are. But yeah, it was great having Noah on. It was awesome. It went a lot better. I mean, he's so easy to talk to. So
yeah, and a lot of cool and exciting things for him. So
yeah,
definitely a fun way to kind of start off the year in terms of these. Tomorrow will be a little bit more analytical, and hopefully, you know, build up some excitement for what are I believe to be some extremely compelling individual fields heading to Miami.
I'm trying to see how I could be piss more people off with the title.
Oh my goodness!
It's fine.
I see all these comments coming in, and I'm like, dude, this is supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be cool and celebrating those 6 athletes having done something that's challenging, and one of them having a chance to do something that no one's ever done. That's all it was meant to be. And I just see, started with John, it precipitates through these comments of like, people are like fighting against us when the whole point of what we're doing is to celebrate the athletes and to create an exciting storyline for what should be an amazing competition in Florida.
And it's not a real thing. Even Triple Crown in other sports, it's not an award. Like, you win the Triple Crown, but it's not like Major League Baseball doesn't give, you know, the Triple Crown winner an award. Like, you're the Triple Crown winner. No, it's a title. It's a title that was made up by media. It really was. It was brought up. If you look at the past of Triple Crown, you know, like whoever wins a Triple Crown in racing, in horse racing, which it's mainly known for, they don't get another award at the end of it saying you're the Triple Crown winner. It's just a title. And that's all it is, a title. Have fun with it. I mean, people are a little concerned with that. I mean, I'm not concerned by it. It is what it is. And it's, you know,
I see these other 2 things as like people trying to belittle Dubai.
Yeah.
And I just like, I don't even have the patience to talk about that. It's such a cool competition that's been such a great outlet for athletes for so long. Yes, there's been ebbs and flows in terms of the best in the world competing there or not, but elite athletes have been competing there every year. And again, just look at the lists, look at the podium finishers there, look at the people that are on this post. For someone to think that Dubai is not a relevant off-season competition says a lot more about that person than the competition. Yeah. And the second thing is trying to infer that by us omitting the CrossFit Games from that conversation, that we're belittling what the CrossFit Games is. It's a different conversation. And, you know, we could let you guys in on some secrets about we have talked about the CrossFit
Yes,
Games
yeah.
in the context of these athletes, and we actually have something planned for the future. So again, I would just say, like, appreciate it for what it is. It's something that's acknowledging a cool accomplishment from 6 athletes, the potential for one to do something unique, and please, like, give us the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming something bad about us. I
No.
haven't, we're trying our best to represent these athletes well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enjoy the show, enjoy the ride, and yeah, cool. Someone's like, you're just making stuff up now. I'm like, I'm not making anything up. This is a real thing.
Yeah, it really is.
6 people have done this. Six people ever have done this. One of them, and you're talking about 6 of the best that have ever done it, by the way. Like, just to get on that list, people are like, oh, it'd be cooler to do it in 1 year. I'm like, dude, the 6 people that have ever done it in their career are Matt Fraser, Pat Vellner, and Noah Ohlsen, are Laura Horvath, Tia Toomey, and Sam Briggs.
Yeah. I mean, that's what a hell of a list. So yeah, it's pretty, and then to Noah to be in there. I mean, Noah's the only one that hasn't won the games in that, but he won Dubai and I think Wodapalooza the same year. So,
yes,
that was
our friend the Rambler. I'll talk about this. Since I said that CrossFit failed the czar, am I still going to go to CrossFit events and talk about it? I mean, look, today is 5 months from when that happened. I reposted something on my story this morning, which was an interview that I did in Austria last month. The guy who did the interview, Michael, released the recording of it, I believe, on December 20th, which was kind of along the lines of the holidays. So I know that things can easily get lost or people are not paying so much attention during that time. We weren't very active during that time for similar reasons. So I reposted it today, and because I had gotten a few comments from people who said that they missed it. And so I realized, if a couple people are reaching out, maybe there's more people that missed it. I've already had a couple people message me today saying, thanks for reposting that. I had meant to watch it and forgot, or I didn't see it the first time. But the reason I did that, and again, like, people are attacking me. Oh, you're doing this to make it about yourself. Well, we intentionally did that on a platform that is not B.Friendly Fitness. That isn't, because that is not supposed to have anything to do with me. That is me sharing my experience from a fairly intimate point of view of what I've experienced and perceived to have happened that day and since that day. And I shared in there that at this time, I'm not planning to participate in the CrossFit Games season. It was part of the conversation we were just having with Noah. That does not by any means mean that I don't have an immense appreciation for the way that CrossFit's changed my life, that I don't have an immense love for the CrossFit community, for the gyms, for the people that own the gyms and the coaches that have had the opportunity to spread the word that Greg created about this thing all over the world. I happen to have made a decision in my life and put myself in the opportunity to travel and interact with more of the global community than most people. And at the same time, Patrick and I oftentimes sit back and listen to people talk about these things who do not have that same global perspective that we have. And we feel really privileged of all the places we go that we're welcomed into those communities, but it's not an accident that they all welcome us there. It's because we genuinely want to know them. We want to know what life is like for them there, what CrossFit is like for them there. And I have conversations all the time with affiliate owners, competition directors, fans, media, athletes, coaches, all these different, perspectives of people in different parts of the world. And right now there's some whole entire communities internationally that are feeling really forgotten, betrayed, or let down by CrossFit as an entity. And in a lot of cases, it's relating to the sport. We haven't talked a lot about it, but the entire region of Arab CrossFitting athletes was hurt by something that CrossFit posted 14 months ago in October of 2023. And that has not been addressed to them. They're still not, they still feel unappreciated by CrossFit. And it was a political thing that they were commenting about. And to me, health and fitness, the best parts of CrossFit is not political. And that's why I was trying to make an effort to go to Russia this year. It has nothing to do with Russia or their leaders or the war that's going on. It has the fact to do with there are people there that have gotten the message that Greg created, integrated into their community, are making positive decisions for themselves, are competing on a regular basis, which I believe competition points back to the methodology in terms of making healthy lifestyle choices, especially at the community level, more so at the community level than the elite level. There's a reason why Patrick went to the South Korean semifinal. There's a reason why we're making an initiative to get to Australia this year. There's a reason why we want to go to China, because for us, this is a global thing. And a lot of the decisions that have been made with regards to the games don't reflect the global point of view. They very strongly reflect the North American point of view. And in North America, there's a very loud media contingency that is vocal about the support of CrossFit. And they attack me and attack us for being vocal on behalf of the rest of the world. I am open-minded to participating in the open and going to these events and being at the games this year. But in the current state of things, I don't, like Noah was talking about, this is a decision for me. I don't feel like supporting that because of the decisions that have been made in the lead up to, during that day, and in the 5 months since then. So I appreciate the question. I know that was a long-winded thing to say. I hope that for anyone who bothers to listen to it, that they can appreciate where we're coming from. You know, Patrick and I, when we started doing this thing, have always been about representing the athletes, representing the competitions, and doing it for the fans that don't have the same access and knowledge and intimate relations that we do. We're very selective about what we share publicly and what we don't. I think Noah said it perfectly. There's tons of opportunity for athletes to express their incredible capacities and fitness throughout the season. We will be keeping an eye on all of it. We will be talking about a lot of it. We will be at some of it. But even if I took out what happened to Lazar and what's happened since then, if I was just looking at the layout for this year's CrossFit Games season, to me, it's the most convoluted version of it that we've ever had with, I mean, look, it's like, this has been the big, I mean, I don't want to say I'm the biggest fan of the sport of fitness, but like, I'm up there and I have been for a decade. And even absent of all of that stuff, I'm having a hard time getting excited for this year's season format. We will absolutely be covering the WFP. I think there's a lot of really good things there. I know some people that are involved in it. It has actually the like materialization or the coming to be of a lot of things that I've been hoping to be a part of for many years now, or hoping to see kind of the evolution of this, competitive fitness landscape go towards. So yeah, that's something that I'm pretty excited to see. I hope to be able to be at some of those events as well. So level of involvement and coverage TBD, as I think it is for a lot of people, but yeah, we'll be engaged. RJ, yes, I will be at Fittest of the Coast. And like, here's another thing. These guys, like, I'm pretty sure Barbell Spin put out a calendar for the year that included some things on it. And I don't think Fittest of the Coast was on that calendar. And Fittest of the Coast is on par with Wodapalooza in terms of the total number of people who are participating and competing there. And it's just like, instead, he's choosing Crash Crescendo. Well, Crash Crescendo is a great competition. I've competed at it, covered it. Crash Crucible, NorCal Classic, these are great. But like, this is such selective information, and at the omission of such a great competition and a huge competition like Fittest of the Coast. That's like those, and that's just here in North America. There's like a ton of amazing competitions around the world that are, those people just aren't investing in that stuff or interested in that stuff. So we see that, and like, I won't feel very much pressure or stress to cover NorCal Classic or to cover Crash Crucible, because I know it's going to get a high level of coverage from those guys. We'll prioritize our focus on the things that aren't going to be, the stories that aren't going to be told, the competitions that won't be told otherwise. I think you need to tune out the negativity. That's what we're trying to do for the most part. It's like, it's balance between being aware of what else is out there and really staying focused on what we're doing and why we're doing it. So I appreciate the encouragement and the comment, CJ.
Yeah. Good show, Brian. What a way to bring in the new year with Noah. And then everyone that joined. Thank you for the questions. We appreciate everyone. We appreciate the chat. We appreciate you guys just being there, being supportive. We appreciate HDR CBD again for joining us on this crazy adventure that we don't even know what it's going to look like. All we know right now is like we have Wodapalooza, which I guess we might as well say it's kind of out there already, right? I mean, yes, B.Friendly Fitness will be providing the broadcast for Wodapalooza. So we're excited about that. A lot of things that will be coming out regarding that. I think you're going to be excited about who the broadcast team is and what some of the stuff we're going to do. It's a big undertaking for us. That's probably another reason why you haven't seen much of us, is because we really concentrating on that. It's a big thing that we're doing. And a lot of it's attributed to what Brian has done by him traveling the world and shooting some of these competitions on just a cell phone and providing that commentary and that perspective. And I think, people see that hard work, they see that dedication, and that's what's led us to cover something as amazing as Wodapalooza. So, we look forward to that. We're excited about that. Hopefully you guys are excited about what we bring to the coverage. And we got that. And we have a reps will be coming at Wodapalooza, and we have some news regarding Reps Head coming up soon. Some exciting news that you guys are going to really enjoy. If you saw the teaser post, it looks like Wodapalooza Reps Ahead might be going global just like us. So keep an ear out. A lot of stuff coming out with that. So appreciate it, guys. We really do appreciate the positivity. We appreciate the love, support. We appreciate you. We appreciate you guys tagging along as we try to figure out the 2025 season. And today, more than any other day, for me personally, just be friendly, friends.